and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming. This is our workshop session on boards and committees elected and appointed. And we welcome you all, and we're glad you're here. We're going to try a couple of interesting things. And most of it is to listen and to try to listen to each other and for us to listen to you. We have refreshments here. We're not going to take a break or anything. Feel free to go help yourself as we go through the night. And I'm going to take not an attendance as much as I'm going to just try to figure out who's here and what boards are represented. But I'd like to start just to see if there's any public comment from the board.
Pancake breakfast tomorrow morning, 8 to 10:30 at the Senior Center.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment from the public? Mr. Rogers, can you share a microphone there?
Sure.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I hope this evening we'll be able to get every board and committee in the town to go along with having a public comment session at the beginning of the meeting and at the end, so that people can correspond on things that have happened during the meeting. The other thing I would hope is that we make it a standard policy within the town that we have a recording of every meeting, and then have someone that these recordings, taped or whatever you want to call them, could be sent to, and they type them and get them back, because I think that there is a dire need for some consistency. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. So, just in a quick kind of who's here kind of way, is there anybody here from the Agricultural Commission?
Liaison from planning board.
Okay. So, Matthew is Architectural Preservation District Commission. Three. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Board of Assessors?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know. No, you. Hi, Lou. My bad. I should know you. I should know everybody. Board of Health? Bylaw Review Committee? Cable Advisory Committee? I saw Steve. Oh, no, Cable Advisory, okay. You.
Yeah, me.
Right. Capital Planning?
We have 4 out of 5, I believe.
Okay. Cemetery Commission? Alrighty. Charter Review Committee? Bob, myself,
Katie and
Michael, and Katie. Great. Conservation Commission? Council on Aging? 2. Thank you. Peter and Jane. Cultural Council? All righty. Finance Committee, Terry and John. Green Community Task Force, okay, Greg. Historical Commission. Okay. Housing Authority. Library Trustees. Richard. Parks Commission, just you. Karen. Personnel Committee, I saw Eric. Okay. Planning Board, Matt, Ken, Greg. Oh, look at you guys.
We have a quorum, so I don't know if you want us to call our meeting to order.
Why don't you go ahead and do it now?
I'd like to call the meeting of the planning board to order tonight.
Thank you. School Committee?
Here.
Okay. Jim. Sewer Commission?
they're meeting tonight.
They're meeting tonight. Okay. Stormwater Task Force? Phyllis and
That's Matt
Matthew.
and Jack.
And Jack. Right, and Zoning Board of Appeals, I saw Al, okay. Thank you. Okay, so that's who's here. Don't forget, as I said, we have refreshments. This is a pretty loose agenda. It's supposed to be a workshop. Feel free to speak up whenever you want. Richard,
We have a forum, so it's very common.
please do.
So we have a forum, the Architectural Preservation District Commission, called our meeting for.
Thank you. Is there any other board that has a quorum?
Yeah, did we post a meeting, did we? We won't talk anything about capital planning, but
Okay. So just don't vote on anything as a group.
I'm also school building committee, and I don't know if that's part of this process as well.
You guys are almost finished, aren't you?
Hopefully.
It looks built.
All righty. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at the posted agenda for tonight. That's pretty much what we're going to follow. I'd just like to kind of set a framework and talk for just a moment. It's not a presentation or anything about the Board of Selectmen goals. We basically set 3 goals, and we're still in the process of defining what that's all about, and this meeting is part of that. But our 3 goals were to improve public satisfaction through community involvement and public outreach. And one of the ways we plan on doing that is through a better communication process with all the boards and committees. But there's several other sub-objectives, including the goals of the town manager that have to do with improved websites and communication tools and public input through surveys and what's the name of those things you do when you...
Survey Monkey.
No, when you have people, charrettes.
Charrettes.
And things like that, right.
I felt like we were playing charades.
We're playing charrettes. But just a better kind of community involvement through communication. And obviously, it means we want to communicate better, but certainly it would be very helpful to us to see if we could get the town more involved in communicating back to us. And one of our frustrations, and I'd love to talk about this in some detail, is the number of people who actively participate in our town government and management, including town meetings and individual board meetings, et cetera. So ways to improve that and make that more effective is certainly on the table. Our second goal is to develop an infrastructure plan. Now that's a big one, and it has to do with roads, buildings, and equipment. So last year, one of our main goals was the pavement management program. That's still an ongoing goal. It's part of our town infrastructure, but we're broadening that to say we also want to be looking at our buildings, which continues the work of building reuse and combines with the public satisfaction through community involvement on that front. It also talks to somehow getting a combined strategy around our future buildings and our future maintenance of buildings, facilities, et cetera, and extends to our equipment, as in capital equipment, automobiles, fire engines, all the stuff that the capital planning group help us plan out with a longer-term horizon. We hope to get that to be much more of a plan than a reactive year-to-year budgeting process. And then finally, to identify a desire for and type of economic development for the town of Lunenburg. Economic development is one of those motherhood apple pie things. Everybody kind of says, yeah, we ought to do that. But we're now at a point where we want to kind of define what does that really mean. Does the town really want it? What does it look like? How do we know if we have it? How do we reach out and make it work better if in fact we do want it? And we've done some things, the town manager have done some things, the land use manager have done some things to get the community involved from a business point of view, but I think we need to we also want to reach out and find out what the town is looking for when they hear things like economic development. So we have a lot of words that kind of make sense first time around that we now want to hopefully put some definition on. Anybody want to add to that from the board in terms of what we're looking to do and how maybe we can ask you to line up to try to achieve some of those same objectives, and how can we help you achieve yours?
Nope, I'd like to hear from everybody, hear from everybody else and then see how we can work together.
Okay. One of the things we asked each of the committees to think about was their accomplishments and goals, and I'm just going to kind of open it up and ask any of the people that have prepared to talk about your committee, what it is you're trying to accomplish, what you have accomplished, what you'd like to accomplish, so that we can see if there's any congruence among committees and also between the various boards and committees and the selectmen. Anybody want to go first? Terry?
Do I need to get up or?
Just because we're filming it, it might make some sense.
You can just turn
You
it.
had that set up over there, so I wasn't sure.
Oh, yeah, we could do that too. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good place.
whatever
works for you.
Over there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Probably works for the camera, too.
Yeah. Thank you, Terry.
Actually, it's closer to the refreshments. And I just have to, I think I can be heard. Basically, the Finance Committee, I'm the chairperson of the Finance Committee, and really for the last couple of years, we've been pushing forward. We did change all of the policies and brought that to the Board of Selectmen. This past year, we've been tweaking, really with an eye towards especially debt policy as it relates to capital planning and infrastructure in particular, since those are areas where there's a lot of big-ticket items coming down the road. And I would also, actually like to second Mr. Rogers' recommendation that I think one of the things that makes it really hard to be a committee member is if you don't have someone taking your minutes, it's really hard to participate and do the minutes and get them in time, especially given now the change in the open meeting law where we have even less time to get them posted. And that does become an issue for us. But that's something that we'll be working on in the coming years. But this year being a big year looking at aside from the infrastructure, which is great that you're setting your sights that way, from the Finance Committee perspective, and actually I should just say from my perspective, it would be really nice for us to have some sense of what the priorities of the town are going into the budget season. I think we try to take that from the town manager's recommended budget, but when there are cuts that have to be made or there's funds that need to be assigned, it would be, we can make a recommendation based on the financial policies that, yeah, that's great, you want to do that, there's no money. Or, if you want to do it, this would be the best way to do it. Yeah, we agree that, like, say, for example, with the payment management plan and the borrowing, while well, I can't say 100% of us, but some of us on the board are allergic to borrowing. Some of us also recognize that may be the best way to get a good start going. And so we'll make a recommendation that if this is what you want to do, yeah, this is the best way to do it, and make a recommendation based on that. But for us, the communication piece, I think we probably will, for some reason we didn't for years and years and years, televise our meetings. I think some of us just felt like it was easier to bring new people on in a workshop type setting where you can actually, because some of the language is just alien to some people. Certainly when we have a vacancy now, so if anybody is interested or knows anybody interested, what we really need are people who can read spreadsheets and want to learn about the town and can sit and listen to departments and listen to their advocacy for things and committees. And really, so we probably see everybody in terms of a departmental or committee standing and in terms of what you're looking for. But it would be nice to hear a town perspective on, okay, so I have $10 and there's a need to spend 12 and something's got to give. What's the town feeling on that? And certainly we get that at town meeting. But basically we think we've done well with the policies, getting those in place. And now if we get a full committee again, it'll be really good coming into budget season. And just keeping up with that is quite sufficient for us this year, I think. But thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Along the way, if anybody has any clarifying questions or comments on speakers, feel free to jump in. Anybody else want to take us through there?
I guess I had a question about the minutes. Now, you...
Okay.
Are you suggesting that FinCom should have someone, the town should supply someone to take the minutes?
Oh, thank you. I guess whether yeah, it would be nice to, if we were televising the meeting, for somebody else to be the recorder, and then we would vote on the acceptance of the minutes at the next meeting. If that was something that was possible, I think we had a finance committee where I think I had said, is there any way we can get, whatever the senior tax thing, could we have somebody, do that as something that would be for different committees?
So I think we found a way to spend that $10 that you have available.
Can I throw something in there too? So I'm from Parks, and it's along the same lines as the minutes. I'm the clerk. There's 3 of us. It is extremely difficult, even more difficult when you only have a group of 3, to be keeping minutes and being able to participate in the conversation. There's many times where I actually have to stop taking notes in order to participate, and then I have to go back. And as a Parks member, we're a relatively young group. The most experience any of us has within Parks is about a year, so we're still figuring things out. But something needs to get done, especially when I make my minutes, it would be nice if my minutes looked similar to somebody else's minutes, so everybody's looks similar. Right now, I just do my best, and sometimes I wonder if I've hit everything. What did I miss? So I'm going to echo FinCom in that with the minutes. But now I'll take a couple of seconds to tell you about Parks.
You don't have any more questions for FinCom, right?
No, awesome, thanks.
Like I said, we're a 3-person committee. We're relatively new to this. I think the longest is our chair. He may have been 2 years. I'm not 100% sure. This year we had a lot on our plate from the get-go because we had things that had been overlooked in the past. Our beach coordinator position and our lifeguard position were both made official positions within the town. We brought that to personnel back in the spring and got them on that whole plan and however all that works. We spent a lot of time working through the fields in town and trying to create some policy both for usage of those fields but fees for those fields. So now there's something in place for anybody that wants to use that field. They can come to us, and if it's available, 9 times out of 10 it is, they can rent that field from us, whether it be somebody, a youth group from in town, or one of the new AAU programs that are coming through. They can use that. We have a lot of work to do. We don't have, if you look at our goals in terms of what specific things we're looking at, there isn't right now, because we are still trying to pick up pieces from years where there wasn't a quorum, or they didn't meet for years, or there's nothing to sort of connect the dots and backtrack on what was done and what doesn't. So in a sense, we're sort of trying to recreate the wheel of what we need to get done. So that's what, if there's a main goal, that would be the main goal for this coming year, is to finish connecting those dots so that we have a Parks Commission that makes sense. And right now we are working with, and the other one would be communication and getting the public involved. And right now we have a great guy over in the Whalum area, Chris Latart, who has stepped up to the plate and spearheaded a cleanup over there. He's done it on his own free will. It's what he wanted to do. It's what he wanted to see his area look like. So when we talk about goals and what our plan is, trying to get people like that involved and more people like that involved. We have a lot of parks in town, and there's always something that needs to be done. That community cleanup day they had down there was excellent. They did a ton of great work with the help of the DPW, and so more people like that, trying to figure out where they are, how to get them involved, and find out what people want out of their parks, and what can we do to, better our park system and make sure everybody's needs are met, because not everybody plays baseball, not everybody plays soccer or wants to play on a playground. So we have some areas that we can do something with, so the goal will be to figure out what to do with it. So.
Do you have an inventory of all the parks?
I think the DPW director does. I have a good understanding of it. We're going to clarify a few things down the road, and I think there's some little things that might fall under us that I may not be aware of. So we'll figure that out and just as we go. It's literally every meeting and every time I have to talk to Jack Rowdequins, it's a learning experience for me. So I'm learning new things every day.
Do you know if any of the other parks are in as sad a shape as well
They
as
all
Park
are.
was?
They all are. So last summer, last July timeframe, I went out and photographed all the parks, and I'd be happy to share with anybody that wants to see it. I think the equipment was about 30 years old. He's looking down because he doesn't want to. He's like, she doesn't need my help. It was out of date. The surface was out of code. There was a lot of stuff that needed to be done. So last winter, late fall timeframe, the DPW went in and removed almost all of the equipment from most of the parks. So some of the parks that had equipment suddenly had no equipment, and that's what spearheaded Chris Letarte, getting going over there. Part of the problem now is that the kids that could use these parks, they're 3 and 4 now. And the way we move in town can be very slow. So, by the time a new park goes in for some of these kids, they could be 12.
They'll still be 3-year-olds.
Well, we hope. we hope. They'll still be 3-year-olds, but no, I know that. So, but yes, most of them were in the same disarray. And just to be clear, Kids Kingdom and the 2 other playgrounds by the schools, those are not parks. So when I say that they're in disarray, I am not speaking of those 3 playgrounds. Those are not, parks has nothing to do with those 3 playgrounds.
So those are under the schools?
They are.
All 3 of them?
Yes.
Does the open space plan cover all the park property as well?
I have no idea, to be honest with you.
It makes a slight reference to them, but it doesn't talk about them specifically. It talks about the need to upgrade the parks and the need to invest in the parks, but it doesn't, and the need to communicate with the Parks Commission, but it doesn't specifically call out the parks. Question, you talked about adopting a fee policy, and when you adopted that, did you look at the needs did you kind of do an overall financial plan of what kind of investment we have to make, and what are the fees going to do to help with the upgrades that the parks needs?
So it's sort of not an easy question to answer. So when I came onto this Parks Commission last July timeframe, and nothing was in place, there was a big push to just get something in place. So we spent a lot of time researching what other towns did and what the needs are of the town and what they were currently spending or what they weren't spending, what they were charging for rates, and we created policy off that. And over the past year, we've been slowly getting information on what it's costing to maintain those fields. And with the bigger scope of being able to look at those and say, are we charging enough? Are we charging too much? And one of the prime examples of that is actually a town beach. It's not even the parks. So for almost 10 years, we didn't see an increase in the town beach at all in terms of passes and swim lessons. At one point this year,
Increase in fees or increase in participation?
Fees.
Okay.
So there's 2 pieces of the puzzle when it comes to the beach in terms of money that comes in. One of them is the seasonal passes that we sell down here at the town clerk. The other one is the swim lessons that come in. And at one point, up until May of this past year, or this year, swim lessons were $30. You remember, Katie? It was $15 a child with a max of $30 for 2 weeks worth of swim lessons. We knew that wasn't going to cover the cost of swim lessons and that the rest of it would be coming out of the salary line item for the beach. So we looked at that and we increased it, but we didn't increase it so much that everybody went into a panic that they couldn't afford swim lessons. So now we'll take all that information that Jen Nass has collected as the beach coordinator, and we'll be able to say, did we charge enough for swim lessons, or did we not? And the same thing with the seasonal passes. Did we charge enough? And if we did, great, and if we didn't, do we need to look at it increasing? And what does the town want? Does the town want to subsidize that, or do they want it to be a self-sustained beach program? So we just have those little things to work out. And the same thing will go forward with, with all the parks in town.
And what about the turf field?
So the turf field, I don't really know how to answer that question. There's been a lot of questioning of who actually owns the turf. And that's something that I'm hoping we can work out in the next couple of weeks. When I came on to Parks, and when at least one of the other members came on, it was our understanding that Parks handled the management of the turf. The school has taken on a bigger and bigger role, and now there's talk that there was never any agreement and the turf actually belongs to them. So we're trying to sort out those details. So until some of those details get sorted out, the turf has not been on the front of the discussion list. We do have a set fee. It's $125 an hour for the use of that turf. We have had people use it. The Leominster Lacrosse Program, who has a large number of players from Lunenburg, they used it this past year. We did negotiate with them slightly because they were using it for longer periods of time instead of just an hour block here or there. I think they paid $113.50 an hour. And that covered them for the whole season. I think we brought in just over $2,000. But until somebody can sort of give more definite answers on that turf complex, it's a hard question to answer.
And the fee applies to outside groups, not school-related groups, is that correct?
Yes, so we have a couple of different things in terms of what we charge people. We have what we call our agreements, which would be things like for the baseball fields, we have an agreement with Lunenburg Little League. They, instead of paying $25 an hour, they pay $10 per player. And they play 3 seasons out of the year. Their numbers differ, but they cut us a check every season. With the Bengals and Lunenburg Youth Soccer, I'm not 100% sure who their agreement's with. They have one. They're currently paying a set fee that will go towards paying off the bond, but that money doesn't come through. As far as I've seen, that money's not coming through Parks, and their agreement's actually not with Parks. I don't know how it went through.
So we need to really look at the
Say that again?
Yeah.
Yes, LISA. LISA.
Draft agreements come through school committee.
Okay, so LISA's, and I'll be clear on that too. So LISA has a slightly different agreement, and this is coming from my memory now. They needed more than one field. So when they went into the agreement, and they started talking about the turf field, they actually ended up going directly through the school, I believe, and their payment goes there because they actually use 2 grass fields for their practice times, and then they have some different agreement, but I'm not sure how it all.
So bottom line is...
Wait, I'm going to make a suggestion.
Okay, that's what I was just going to do.
We're getting down into a level of
Yeah.
detail that this meeting is designed to uncover these issues, but not to work them.
Right, so I was just going to say, from this discussion, it sounds like there needs to be a meeting with the Parks, the school
And
committee, and the
there's
selectmen.
a lot of work to be done.
That's what it sounds like,
And
there needs to be a separate workshop.
It is in process. We're coming to you guys, I think, in November.
Okay.
We have some upcoming stuff trying to
It sounds
sort
like
it
the
out.
school committee should be part of that discussion.
And it'll get there. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah, awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Anything else? I'll be right over there if you need me.
Any other board or committee? Please,
Yep.
hold it. You're next. Brett? Okay.
I feel like, after the last 2 speakers, I feel like an amateur up here with my crib notes, but I just jotted a few things down. In any event, I'm Lou Franco. I'm the chairman of the Board of Assessors, and Mr. Chairman, you're to be forgiven for not knowing who I am because nobody knows who we are until they want to crab about their taxes. So what we do is we discover, list, and value all properties within the town of Lunenburg, all manner of property, real estate, personal property, and until I was on the board, I really didn't know what that meant, but that means if you have an unincorporated business entity, like a home business or a sole proprietorship, and it has certain assets, like, believe it or not, like computers, desks, chairs, wall art, that stuff gets assessed and taxed. In any event, so our goals are, and it's very hard to discover the personal property. We just contracted with a new entity that is going to handle just our personal property to uncover and identify these types of businesses, unincorporated businesses, and we believe there's a lot of revenue out there. This is a gaping hole for us, and it's one of our goals to really close that up. There's a whole bunch of, when people, and it's not all intentional, people are just unaware of that they have these obligations to pay these taxes. And when people don't pay what they're supposed to or pay less than they're supposed to, everybody else pays more. The town has a certain levy that gets decided every year, what the levy needs to be, how much money we need to raise, 32 million, 33 million, whatever it is. And then the Board of Assessors figures out who's going to get taxed how much, basically. And normally it's by classification, real estate, commercial, we have a single rate across the board. But basically, the levy is the levy, and we need to raise that much money, so people get a little bent out of shape if, for example, they see the value of their house go down, or the value of their real estate go down, but their amount paid, their rate go up. It's, $21, $22 per thousand. The fact of the matter is you're going to get taxed the same amount. It's just a question of whether or not we call the real estate a higher value and tax you a lower amount per thousand, or we call it a lower value and tax you more per thousand, or higher rate. So in any event, among our other duties are, so a big goal for us is identifying this personal property. That's very much more difficult to identify. It's easier to identify real estate. Another thing we want to try to do to assist is we're continuing to build our GIS, that's Geographical Information System capabilities, so that we can actually, when we're talking about a piece of real estate, for example, at an assessor's meeting, and we want to see, get an eyeball from the sky, literally, like on, something like a Google's Maps, zoom in, what's the rough size of this building? How many structures are on the property? What percentage looks like wetlands? Do we look like we have the right acreage? And then based on that information, we either sort of reaffirm the existing record or say we need to go out and inspect that personally. So that's another thing we want to tighten up. We want to continue our periodic inspections, which we're on a 9-year cycle. So over a 9-year period, every piece of real estate theoretically gets inspected, but a lot of it is by record inspection. We rely a lot on the old paper, on the old existing record if something doesn't look totally out of whack. It's just impossible to go physically inspect all that. We want to improve our efficiency with data collection and return rates of necessary assessment data. In other words, we want to make it easier to pay taxes. So to understand and pay taxes. So we want to have more information on the website, make it easier to use so that people understand what their obligations are. It's a mystery to a lot of people. It's not an intentional thing. It just goes under the radar. They set up a home business. They don't even know they have an obligation to pay taxes on that. Not on the income from it, but on the assets. Well, this is kind of related. Continue to develop and maintain online educational and public relations information. And we are also converting our assessment software package. Nobody even is going to care about this, but we're just switching the company we're using. And the other thing that we do is, on a weekly or on a monthly basis when we have our meetings, is we hold abatement hearings. So if a person or a family or a property owner, I should say a real estate property owner, believes that they're paying too much or that their property is overvalued, that they can come in and make a case for that. So they come in and everybody wants to make a case that the value of their property is lower until they go and sell it. All of a sudden it's worth $400,000 when it's time to pay taxes, but $650 when it's time to sell it. And then the other thing we do is rule on exemptions. There are various bases of exemptions on taxes, widows or widowers of military who have died, all those kinds of things, age exemptions, income exemptions. And then the other thing we do is decide there's something called chapter land, whether real estate is taken out of the normal tax scheme and put into one of several recognized categories of what we call chapter. Is it recreational, agricultural, etc.? Those are just examples. So that's us. Any questions on that? You're all thrilled, all right. It's very very exciting stuff. Totally necessary, though. We're the revenue people.
I'm Greg Bittner, I'm the Chair of Planning. Some of our goals are to address more of our bylaw that we have. Right now, we're working on a use table and definitions, so basically we go through each district and each residence A outline commercial district, and we list what's allowed on a use table, and if it's not listed, then it's not allowed, and then they can go through the ZBA or whatever for variances. Increase communication is another one of our goals, and I think that's somewhat of a reoccurring theme. I think that starts with us. Whenever I get an email from either another member of another board or a resident, I always reply. I know there's a lot of discussion about it's not appropriate to engage in discussion, which is fine, but I always reply with thank you for the email, please attend the next meeting, or try to give them information as to how they can participate and where to get the information for themselves so they can make up their own mind. So I just wanted to keep it short, but basically we've hit a couple of bumps in the road with the bylaw because we added a new member and we didn't have one for a while. I'd like to see us, and we are addressing it to get through more of it this year by we actually adding an extra meeting just to focus on the bylaw, because we've actually had some pretty heavy agendas lately, so that's a good thing because we're getting more projects and more applications. So. But basically, that's what we're up to as far as that. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to go? Sure.
Dick Mayu, Lunenburg Public Library Chair, and I want to go back and pick up from the kids in the rec department, and hopefully there will always be those 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds, because if you were in the library at any time this summer, you saw that that's where they were. This is sort of like just me, because this came out and I couldn't get it on the agenda for the last meeting, so it wasn't really discussed. But our goal is really to continue to improve the services that we provide to the community. And I think this summer, both programs for the littler, younger children and the teens were very well prescribed. We also had, as an addition to that, Project Bread that came in and just used our facility to offer meals. I think it was Monday and Wednesday. Anybody in the community, 18 or younger, who showed up got fed. And they had both hot meals, cold meals. It cost the library nothing, but it brought the kids. Kids came over from the FLAC program that was going on. They came from the teen center, and it provided the sort of thing that we want, which is, as long as I've been on the board, which is getting to be a while, just to really have the library act as a community center. You've been there. There are ongoing art exhibitions. Karen Kemp, former children's librarian, if you're around, I think it's the 14th. There's an opening of a show of Karen's art. Adult programs, young people's programs. The library continues to be more and more used and more part of the community, and that's what we'd really like to do. We also do have our assistant sort of I guess a digital services librarian is what we call her. She's done a great job with our webpage. We have a presence on Facebook with both the library as well as the youth library. There is a survey on the website if you care to go and take it, which asks for some public input as well. So those are the things that really we want to do, is continue that sort of issue and bring more and more of the community in more and more often, because that's really what the library is about. And we just celebrated, a year ago now, our 10th year in the new building, and I can't imagine, having been on the board in the old days at Ritter. Thank God the town went ahead with the new library, because the sorts of programs and the sorts of usage that this library gets would really never have been possible within that footprint of the Ritter. And so we're very, very, very grateful for that. So check out the website, take the survey, and by all means, drop by. We have ebooks, we have ebook readers to loan, as well as those things with pages in the middle, so those are really good.
Hi, Matthew Allison, Planning Board, Stormwater Task Force, and Advisory to AgCom. I would like to follow up on the public comment, that I do believe that public comment at the beginning, at the end of every meeting, would be beneficial. And I'll bring up another point that I've made over and over, is that I believe that we should have our agendas and our minutes and everything that is produced as a document from each and every board and group standardized with Town of Lunenburg, what group it is, the names of the members, the contact information, and the information contained within in an itemized, standardized format, so that not only it's easy for everybody involved with it to read, but any citizen of the 11,000 plus in Lunenburg can look at any document from any board or group. If it's an agenda, it's going to look the same. It's going to have a different group name on it. If it's meeting minutes, it's going to look pretty much the same in a very similar format. And I love that we have a lot of our meetings televised, although a lot of our meetings are not. A lot of our meetings are recorded on digital audio. And being a member of Stormwater Task Force, I will suggest that you just set the recorder, you go through your meeting, you participate in the meeting, and it might take you an extra hour or two, however many hours. I mean, planning goes to 4 hours sometimes, and that would really suck. But you take it home, first off, you get to participate in the meeting as an active participant instead of sitting there writing everything that's said. And then you get the opportunity to review it at your leisure, and then if you can pause it, and Phyllis actually does it for our group at Stormwater Task Force, so she might be able to give you some pointers, but that actually seems to work out really well, and it's within the next day or two that she's got them done. Also, standardized signage for events and group activities and meetings and public activities. I've noticed that the Ritter is full of signs for this, that, something else. There's one signage board. I brought it up numerous times that we should have. I mean, we constantly get compared to Groton and Littleton. Groton and Littleton both have banners, 2 and 3 banners across their main roads that let not only the public, but the transients, the people from other towns, they get to see that, and they say, oh, wow, that's going to happen. Oh, yeah, maybe I'll check that out. We really don't. We really don't have that, and I've actually pursued that as a planning board member. I've contacted DOT, Mass DOT, have not gotten any word back. I've contacted MRPC, and I've gotten contacts to contact for that information, and I've never gotten any response. I think it would be a huge benefit to all kinds of activities that go on in town for not only the citizens, but the passersby and the local people that Townsend, Groton, Fitchburg, Leominster, anybody passing through is aware that, oh wow, next weekend there's going to be this big thing. And the last thing I wanted to comment on was that as the liaison to AgCom, they have been looking for encouragement, and we have finally gotten last weekend a joint thing with the Historical Society, and it was a rainy, crappy day, and we had a great turnout because there were a lot of people involved. It was 2 different groups of people that don't really have a lot in common, but I mean, this being a farming community looking at our town seal, the history of Lunenburg and the farming of Lunenburg are pretty closely tied. And I attribute that connection a little bit to the turnout that we had. We actually had a horse-drawn carriage pulling out of the Ritter Library on the Mass Ave, going down Memorial Road and making a route, and it was a beautiful thing. And I encourage you folks to look on Facebook because there's a video of it. I've got pictures. It was a great turnout. I just want to encourage the interparticipatory actions, the groups working together rather than in seemingly their own little fiefdoms. I mean, if you look at the agendas, some of them don't even have town seal. Some of them don't have the members listed. Some of them have very little information. They have agenda, open meeting, talk, closed meeting. that's really not very useful to the public. Thank you.
Right behind you, Steve. Nope, behind you, Steve, you're next. Right.
I'm Michael Ray Jeffries, member of the Planning Board. I'm here representing the Charter Review Committee. First, I want to echo, not to beat a dead horse, but I want to echo some of the previous comments. As the clerk for the Charter Review Committee, it was a question of, how do we format these? What format do we go off of? I did go through the town website and looked at everyone's minutes and everyone's meeting structure, and I will say that I believe, my opinion, the planning board certainly sets the standard. I think that the format that Marjorie has come up with for the planning board, it's very detailed, and I've mimicked that format for the Charter Review Committee as well. I think that the minutes that are provided by the Board of Selectmen are certainly the most thorough minutes. They're more transcript-like, and with the planning board, with the Charter Review Committee, I've tried to imitate more of the planning board's format, which is not as much of a transcript, but it's also very detailed with key points that are highlighted throughout the meeting. On the Charter Review Committee, we're taking a four-phased approach to how we're proceeding. The first phase is community outreach and information. As many of you have already received an email from our chairman, Mr. Ebersol, the last couple of days stating that we're Charter Review Committee, that's what we're doing. Also, we've also assigned liaisons. Every member of the Charter Review Committee has been assigned to each board or committee in town, and they will be reaching out to you if they haven't already over the next couple of weeks, because the first phase of this is to reach out to everyone and say, here's a charter, here's where you're mentioned in it, what's your, what do you want, what do you think the changes need to be. The second phase is with work groups. It's also part of the first phase, in which as we come up with specialized ideas, different members of the group are being tasked with different small kind of work groups. The third phase is to draft the legislation or draft the language for whatever changes will be made. And the fourth phase is community outreach. We also instituted because the charter, any changes to it requires a 2/3 majority from the town, we've also instituted a similar rule for ourselves. It's in our best interest for us to maintain a 2/3 majority going through everything that we do. It's certainly it's not in our interest to have 4 members to pass things 5-4, where you have 4 members who are actively engaged and involved and opposed to what you're doing. So our goal again is to have majority of the Charter Review Committee as we move forward. So that's where we're at with this. More information to come. The goal is for a town meeting in May. Any questions? All right.
Thank you. Steve.
Sure. Hi, I'm Steve Walker. I'm the chair of the Public Access Cable Committee. We run the 2 channels that we presently have. There's a control room in the back there. There are a couple of staff recording this. So it is going out live at the moment on one of the channels, and will be recorded and will be rebroadcast later on. Our mission is basically to serve the community that we're in through the creation of broadcast media programming for and about Lunenburg. So very broad spectrum is available. We provide residents, students, and organizations with access to and training on some of the equipment that we have. It's possible to borrow a camera if you want to use it for a Lunenburg function, not for the family picnic, but for something that's going on for Lunenburg. We can make a program out of it. We can also help you edit it, make it into a proper program. We've been doing this for quite a long time now. Recently, the town hall control room was significantly updated. These cameras you see up here are high definition cameras. The channel is standard definition. That's the old TV you used to get. We're working on trying to get it up to high definition, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. We have a new multi-channel high definition video server in there. This is the latest. It's high-tech equipment. So everything we do is actually in high definition. We record it in high definition, we edit it, we store it in high definition, And then for the cable system, we down convert it to put it on to channels 8 and channel 9 at the moment. We do now have wireless microphones available, so for different configurations of meetings, we can use that, which is simpler than the wired ones. We're trying to increase our community interactions. In particular, the high school STEP program is ongoing with us. Eagle House gets involved, and we also do, and these are probably all the right people who need to know this, the public service announcements. So any committee members here who want to talk about their committee, we can set you up to do that. We can create a program for you. We encourage you to do that. If it's particular things, we recently did one on the ice safety. It was a program about how to fall through the ice and what you do when you've done that. We can do these as you wish. We can help you. We can also help you organize the programming so it makes sense. In the last year, we created 127 original programs just out of a community of 10 or 11,000 people, which I find remarkable. For our future, we're preparing for a permanent studio. Right now, we use a room in TC Passios. We've agreed with the building reuse for 2,600 square feet, so we can put in a proper studio with all the proper equipment, the proper lighting, the proper acoustics, all this. Make it very easy for people to come in and find a proper environment for doing and making programs. We're looking to increase our present staffing. We're planning a mobile production unit. This is particularly useful for things like football games. It's basically a van with multiple cameras and a small production facility inside the truck. This way you can actually create it directly in there like people do for ESPN, NBC, and sadly NESN, who probably are not broadcasting baseball at the moment, which is unfortunate. But we could broadcast our baseball. We are presently under negotiation with Comcast because our contract for Comcast in the town actually has expired. I can talk about that briefly. I'll give you an update on the Cable Advisory Committee, of which I'm also a member. So I will do that in just a moment. The key to bring before all of you is we're looking for 2 types of volunteers. We have a committee of 3, which means if one's on vacation, we can't meet, not usefully anyway. We're also looking for volunteers for the real fun part of it, and that is to come and run the equipment in the control room, come and run the equipment in the studio, take cameras out to the Stillman Fair and make videos there that we can put together, learn how to do the editing. So if any of you are budding Hollywood producers, please step forward, volunteers both on the committee and for doing programming. If anyone has any questions on that, now's a good time.
Do you have capacity to film additional town committee?
We have, there are a couple of issues there. One is the volunteer capacity. We can lend you a camera, you can do it yourself. The concern we have, and we actually put a note out on this earlier, is that if you only rely on a video being shot at the meeting for your minutes, you can be disappointed. The equipment is never 100% reliable. A camera can fail on you, you may not realize it. The SD card that's in the camera can get damaged, can get lost. This is not the right place. I understand all the comments about people want to be in the meeting, want to be interacting in the meeting, and it's extremely difficult to take proper notes at the same time. If we were to do that, where a lot of resources would be needed, but in particular, we would have to duplicate a lot of things we don't have the ability to do right now, such as archiving, so that when we have a video that we've captured of a meeting, if it's to become a part of the record of the meeting, we can't just keep it on an SD card in somebody's pocket. We've not only got to put it onto a local server, but we probably need to put it on a cloud server as well. We are not able to do that. It's not for want of trying and not for want of hearing requests. We would like to, but right now it's just not practical.
Steve, is there some place we can bring up a weekly guide of programming?
Now can I talk about the Cable Advisory Committee? and I really appreciate that, because that's exactly what we needed. The Cable Advisory Committee has 3 members. Paula is one of them, and Tom is the other one, and myself. We're negotiating with Comcast for a new contract. Ours expired, I believe, on the 3rd of September. So right now we're between contracts with a gentleman's agreement to carry on. We have also served them notice of denial that we won't renew their contract because their offer for both fee and capital infusion was not sufficient for what we were looking for. One thing the Public Access Committee did is produce a business plan for our next 10 years. Based on that, we went to Comcast and asked for an increase in the fee and asked for a capital infusion, which is the normal practice. And right now, we're still in considerations of doing how that's actually going to come together. In the middle of all this, we also asked for 3 other things, one of which is access for a high-definition feed. I don't know about you, I rarely watch standard definition, except I obviously watch Channel 8 and Channel 9. But most other things I'm really looking nowadays for high definition. And there are essentially no Comcast communities in Massachusetts that have that ability. The second thing was access to the electronic program guide, for which I thank you for your question. We would love to put our information up there. It's relatively trivial to do. There's a standard process for exporting data, which we have to create anyway to run the system. The caster system we put in has the ability to create this and export it, but Comcast won't let us do that. They won't let anybody do it. And just so that you are aware, there is legislation pending to require cable service providers to provide PEG channels in the same format as the local broadcast channels. So that would allow high definition. We would also want to maintain the standard definition, because there are people who take basic service and they would, may not have a high definition television. They still need to be able to see it. The third thing that we're actually asking for, or less politely insisting on, I believe would be appropriate, is an educational channel. Right now we have a public channel and a government channel. We have a new high school. We have a lot of people, a lot of events, a lot of things happening. Most other communities have an educational channel. We would like the third channel, the educational channel as well. The last I saw, they were prepared to start talking about it in 2 years. I thought providing it in 90 days would be a more reasonable approach to it. We're ready, they're not. So that committee, I trust, will expire shortly, because that means we have achieved our only goal, which is to get a satisfactory franchise license for the town with Comcast.
I have a question. I know that you're negotiating with Comcast. How much of what you get from Comcast is paid for by the subscribers in Lunenburg?
It's a pass-through.
What does that mean?
That means that whatever they agree to turns up on your bill and amounts to about, at the moment, about $2.70 a month, if I remember the number correctly.
And that's total, that we don't pay any more than $2.70 a month?
At the moment.
I thought there was also a capital program.
That's, for presently, that would be included in that number. Right now, we're looking to...
You're looking to double that, right?
It'll be about double that if it goes through, a little less.
It's not double the 270.
No.
No, it's not double the $2.70.
It's
and
five
I don't-
something.
No, I don't think that it is, Phyllis, and I'd have to go back and look at my notes.
Yeah, I'd have to look at my
But I
notes.
believe the increase that we were talking about, Heather, do you recall?
No, it was 5%, going from a 2.5.
Right, so we're going from a 2.5% to a 5, no, I think.
That's double.
Right, but it's not doubling the fee, it's a very small portion of the bill. The 270 includes both the capital and the franchise fee. So we'd have to, I'm not going to get into specifics, I think we have to look at the numbers, and if
Yeah.
you're interested in that, we can certainly provide that, but I don't want to quote numbers without having them in front of me.
And it's still under negotiation. We don't know what the final number is.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a pass-through. and
It's a
the
pass-through.
subscribers
The
pay.
subscribers pay for the services, yes.
But it lets us create and use the studio and staff it without imposing any fees, directly through the town budget.
Through the town.
So the town doesn't pay for it, but the subscribers do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you're not a subscriber,
It feels like an extra tax on subscribers.
It's the way the industry does it, it's the way that all communities do it. The subscribers pay for the service. So,
no more questions? Oh, I hope it's a good one. Thank you.
Is there any dialogue or interest in the high school putting a studio within the high school or middle school staff?
We are able to do live broadcast already from the high school. We're presuming we will end up in the TC Paseos building, which is very close anyway. Right now, when the high school was designed, created, and implemented, they did not create a studio space in there. But it's going to be very close anyway, and we can certainly stay open on that. So.
The other reason on that is today's security issues with the cable TV studio needing to be accessible to the public in a school that needs to be locked and made secure. So as long as we have a studio that's accessible to the public, that's near the school and accessible to the school, was what we're talking about, trying to make sure it's accessible.
Is that because of the time, Bob, because Marlboro High School has its own broadcasting studio settings?
Yeah, it goes to the security issues from today's world.
Did you have only one location where you offset 150 students in-house?
So they built the school with the ability to broadcast things from that, so.
But the cost of outfitting two studios, I think, may be prohibitive. We're struggling to get the funding we need to outfit one. So, ideally, would that be wonderful? Yes, but this is a 10-year contract. So whatever we negotiate is what we will have for 10 years. And to be honest, we're including a new studio, but we're not including funding for a studio in the high school at this point.
We are also including funding for a mobile unit, which
Right, so
you
that we can
take
do
to
more
somewhere,
broadcasting for the
such as the high
educational.
school.
Right, exactly.
If you need. Hearing silence. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
I'm Jane Rabbit, and I'm a member of the Council on Aging. And I was my arm was twisted to do this tonight by our director.
Enthusiastic.
Right. Anyway, the first thing I wanted to kind of show people is our newsletter. I don't know if you pick this up in certain places. I know they have them at the Council on Aging. And a couple of things that are interesting about this newsletter. Number one, it's now in color, which I don't think we paid anything extra for. And in big letters here, it's 50-plus community news. And the other thing that I think is interesting is, we kind of changed the name to Eagle House Senior Community Center. And I think that helps to make us a more inclusive organization, and I think that's what we're looking for. And so if you're 50-plus, there's probably information in here for you. That's what everybody says. And I just wanted to mention just a few things that, we have accomplished in the last year or so. Our director, Sue Doherty, and with funding assistance from the Eagle House supporters, We've now opened the Eagle House on Fridays without increasing the budget. We sort of have a bare bones staff with that. But that's really important because people that have medical appointments now can access MART on Fridays, which before they couldn't. There's been a lot of improvements in our kitchen that were really needed. We have a new stove top and double ovens, and they also, we have now a washer and dryer, which is nice because before the staff used to take, the dish wipers and stuff home and do them themselves, and now they can do them there. Through capital improvements, the Eagle House was painted recently, and it looks great. We have a bocce court, working on the shuffleboard court. I think we have horseshoes, don't we? Okay. And then the big hit is somebody donated a pool table, and that's become really, really popular. In terms of future objectives and needs, well, first of all, a little bit of a statistic. If you compare the fiscal year 2016 with 2017, the unduplicated visits rose by 15%. And that is, when they say unduplicated, in case you don't know, is the total number of individuals who visited at least once. So even taking into account adding the day, we've had a lot more people, new people come in. Future objectives and needs, increasing town funding for the staff we did increase that day, and I think at some point, with the younger population and the fact that they have to, a lot of times, do things in the evenings, they wanted to increase how many evenings will be available. Currently, we have yoga that's consistent in the evening, and then some other things like flower design that occurs, occasionally. There's an Alzheimer's support group that just started once a month, and the other two big ones are they're working on indoor pickleball at the Passios gym. And also there's work in progress with Alpha, which is the adult learning in the Fitchburg area, and they do a lot of adult programs, and they're looking to expand to Lunenburg, so that's one of the things we're working on too. Any questions? Yes?
Just when you said the adult programs to expand, what kind of programs?
Well, as I said, classes like...
okay, so more classes.
More classes in yoga, and the classes, maybe would be through the Alpha program, so they would last, like, right now, if you sign up for a class, I think it goes for 6 weeks, once a week, or whatever, so... Okay. And they have a whole variety of things, so...
Awesome.
Yes?
Our seniors, do you hear from them whether they find it hard to participate or get information, those who aren't proficient with computers or have access to the internet, or?
That's a good question. The regulars, they're involved and all of that. It is hard kind of to break in. Well, a lot of times because people say, they're 80 years old, I'm too young to go to the senior center. But it's another community resource. It would be nice to expand it, but that is a problem. Although, also some people, once they go a couple times, and that's, they sort of enjoy it and come back. And our director has been very good with welcoming new people in, so it's worked out.
So you recently mailed out that newsletter. Is that something you mail out all the time or once a year?
No, the newsletter is monthly. You can get them at the senior center, but they also have them around town in, various locations. Yes?
I just want to say, when I first had any inkling of what was going on at the Eagle House, it had a very big social service focus, and I understand that there's still social service activities that occur there. but the other activities just seem to be increasing and taking on more of a focus now for Eagle House. Am I having a sense of that correctly? That it's more community resource based as opposed to social service focused?
I would say that.
Have you decided to change your, your second line, have you considered adding something like the big Boys and Girls Club? Because really, that's
the big Boys and Girls Club
seems to have changed. But basically, you're just down the street from the Boys and Girls Club, and it's just the type of, the nature of the activities just seems to have changed. Because I remember when coming to the Finance Committee, it was about having people who could assist people who were there because they needed help getting around, it just seems a whole different focus. And I'm not sure that people, and yeah, I am old enough to go now. But it's still one of those things that I wouldn't consider at this point because it's also, I still have that whole picture in my head of it's a senior center.
Right. And I think there is a focus to become more, community, with more community involvement, but they still have, a lot of activities, like you do the Shine program where they help people with figuring out Medicare and what they want to do for their supplementals. And so there's still a lot of kind of social service activities, would you say, Pete?
One of our goals is to lower the demographic. There is nothing for the elderly people to do here that's still fit. And this is because of a lot of programs, the film program, the outdoor activities, and that's something we're working on. We focus on. The next census, there will be more people in town over 60 than under 25. Yet the knowledge that go into those two different age groups are extraordinary. And so what we're trying to do is turn this into I don't like the word elderly, I don't like to use that word, I just more golden, yes. If you are over 50, it's difficult to find things to do in this town. There's no activities to plan for old folks.
Well, we have some good vacancies.
The other thing I'd say is that I don't think they've eliminated the social services. I think they expanded because you still do Meals on Wheels,
yes,
the fuel assistance and other things like that. And you talked about
Right,
the Shine program.
Right.
So I think, but you're right, the additional programs, it feels different. It's more inclusive.
And we're in the process, as we speak, we're having a new outreach person, Big Andy since retired. All the candidates that we've seen so far are younger. I think the focus is more towards working with young people as well.
Okay.
So aren't you having isn't there a function coming up in a couple of Saturdays?
Couple of Saturdays.
Fair.
The fair?
There's the fair this coming Saturday. And
What is
the pancake breakfast? It's I don't know, it's the 14th, I think? No, I'm not sure. Can't be. 12th?
Friendly, is it Saturday? No.
Not sure.
I think it's Saturday. It's probably in that little newsletter.
Anybody else? Sir?
I'm Richard McGrath, Chairman of the Architectural Preservation District Commission. Over the past year, we've been working to formulate our guidelines and regulations for the district with input from the selectmen, land use manager, and public. Going forward, we're ready to approve changes to our last draft. After that, we have that goes to public hearing, and then before the selectmen, and then we vote to approve that draft. And once that's done, we become a functioning body. That's my report. Any questions? What?
We do need to be. We're down to 3.
Down to 3, yes.
Down to 3,
So we have 3, we're down to 3 members. We need 5 for a full body, plus we're allowed some alternates, so there's plenty of room for growth on our commission.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm getting elderly too. I need my glasses. Hi, I'm Al Gravel from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I learned a lot about some of the other boards sitting here tonight, and so I just thought maybe I'd tell you a little bit about the Zoning Board of Appeals and the purpose and responsibility of the Zoning Board of Appeals. We are a quasi-legal board which interprets and enforces the protective zoning bylaws of the town of Lunenburg, and that's done on a case-by-case basis. And all cases meet certain findings to be approved. The board hears and decides petitions for appeals from the building inspector, who is also our zoning enforcement officer, special permits as allowed under the bylaw, variances from the requirements of the protective bylaw, and comprehensive permits under a Chapter 40B of the Massachusetts laws. The Board of Appeals holds public hearings on all cases before it. The board meets on the second and fourth Wednesday of each month, as needed. Hearings can last from anywhere from 1 to 3 hours, depending on the case, and a lot of nights we might have multiple cases. Most hearings are heard and go into deliberation with a motion made and voted on that night. We usually sit there, deliberate in front of the audience on the camera, and we make our motions and decisions. As far as the public speak, I know that was asked earlier. We always open it up to the public at the end of our hearing. Usually, but we don't cut people off. If people want to speak once or twice, sometimes we always let them come back and say what they want. We do it at the end because there is a lot of information during our hearings that the petitioner is going to present, board members are going to ask. So a lot of the questions that people in the audience and the public want to know, a lot of that will come out and save time. So that's why we like to do it at the end. Again, some cases that we do, they're continued, but most cases we do that particular night. A 40B, that case can go as long as a year. We've had 40B that's gone longer than a year. A 40B is mandated by the state for affordable housing, and there are special rules. And the zoning board acts for the planning board, the conservation, and all other departments in the town, and that's why those particular cases take a very long time, and it's much more complicated than a normal hearing for somebody who wants a side yard, special permit for a side yard or something. The board is made up of 5 members and 3 alternates. We're appointed by the Board of Selectmen for 5 years and 3 years for the alternates. We currently have 2 openings for alternate members. We interviewed one person, and we have asked him to follow up through the selectmen. And we also have another person we're looking at through the job bank that just came in. As far as some of our goals, we just reviewed the 40B several months ago and came up with a new, it had to be revised, it hadn't been done in a number of years. So we went through and we redid that and voted on it and accepted that new revision. Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Matthew Allison, Planning Board, again, I apologize, I feel remiss, I didn't ask if there were any questions, and I didn't really say much about the boards that I'm on. Stormwater Task Force, we currently have 4 members out of 5, so we are seeking one more. AgCom has a plethora of applicants that are just wanting to come and take part regularly. There are people there. So AgCom meets the third Thursday of the month typically. Stormwater Task Force, when we were facing the permit coming up this year, we met the second and the fourth Thursday. Now we've cut it down to one meeting typically a month. And Planning Board, of course, is the second and fourth Monday. So were there any questions? Okay, thank you.
I'll do capital planning. Okay. Get up like everybody else. Just touch on what we've been working on for capital planning. Specifically this year, we've been working, and I want to thank John Henshaw for the tireless work he's been doing with updating our forms that go out to the department heads that they fill out to put in their capital requests. They used to all be done on paper, now they'll be digitized and standardized, and that'll easily parlay into how we present them to people and how we evaluate them. And so specifically want to thank John for his work and everyone else on the board we've been showing up more frequently to get this process going that we don't typically do. And I also wanted to touch back to the minutes, and I think we can find some better way for boards to capture minutes, because Karen didn't mention, but she's taking minutes for the parks, but she's also been taking minutes for capital planning. And I remember back when I first got started on different town boards, I was taking minutes for the Historic Commission and the Building Reuse Commission, and it's a lot of work, especially for somebody who has a job and has kids and has to go to the board, multiple board meetings and do all that, regardless of the time you spend during the meeting, and you don't get to pay attention. So I think there's got to be some way we can do a better job to help folks get that accomplished in a standardized way. So that's capital planning, unless anyone has any questions. Thanks.
Anybody else? Bob has been capturing some of what we have been talking about, so.
Having been a minute taker for many years, and I will say that taking minutes is an art as much as it is a science, so I had to learn how to do it, and then the open meeting law expanded to increase what we're supposed to collect. It's not supposed to be a transcript, but we're supposed to generally, somebody from the public should be able to understand what went on in the meeting without having gone to the meeting. It's not just votes. So, but that's not something that we as a town train volunteers to do. And that's something we need to do, or do it differently. So some of the themes I heard tonight, I'm impressed with the professionalism of the various boards and commissions. Need for technical support, agenda, minutes, GIS, website. Planning, updating data, tools, information. Maintenance, is there a fee for maintenance? Is there a fee for capital improvements? Communication, the demands of day-to-day operations versus planning for the future. Services and duties, how to improve them, expand them in hours or people served. The need for improved funding or improved facilities or equipment. And then I heard also volunteers to support the operations, as well as volunteers for the board. So there were a lot of consistent themes that we heard through the thing. So I'm quite impressed with what came on tonight.
Some of the other questions we had on our agenda, and I'd like to just throw these out and see if anybody feels we haven't covered them and wants to talk about any of them. How can we increase the communication within boards and between boards and selectmen? What assistance do boards need from us, from the Board of Selectmen? Does the role of liaison that we've kind of been working over the last couple of years, does that assist in any way? Should it be different? Should it be improved, changed? Is there anything else you want to talk about that you really want us to concentrate on? And we did ask you to fill out a worksheet. I think most of you use that.
We didn't ask him to fill it out. It was just to talk about, that worksheet came from our last work session, our last roundtable discussion, and what we talked about was how to get volunteers to come forward. And what came out of that meeting is that a lot of people that might be interested in volunteering don't have enough information about what kind of time commitment they're committing to, what kind of things that they're going to have to, what's trainings involved, what really is this commission all about, because our talent bank doesn't have a lot of information. So what came out of our roundtable, I think it was last year, was that we needed to put together some sort of overview that committees could make public for people to understand their committee. So that was that worksheet. You didn't need to fill it out. It was just to talk about, did that capture that discussion?
Mhm.
That was really
Okay. Sure.
I think one of the things after sitting through the charter review committee and doing some research on other stuff, I ended up posting on a Facebook site a video that was available at the town moderators association. I don't know if there's a copyright infringement or anything, so I was hoping Tim Murphy could probably answer that, but nobody said don't do that. But I think education-wise, I think being new to the town, I came from the city council and mayor. I had no idea the first town meeting I went to, one, how important it was, two, what I was voting on. So I think education-wise, it would be good to use some of these resources that are already available to let people know. And that's one of them, is let people know what committees are and how they work. And I don't know if there's a way to better use social media to do that, because I also know that people don't belong to all the same groups in town. So if something does get posted, where does it post? Is there a way to use our website better to get some of that stuff out? Is there a way to do any kind of video streaming from the site instead of, like trying to post something on Facebook? Because I was thinking there was someone who had mentioned a while back that, Chief Sullivan would like to be able to have public service announcements when there's an emergency situation. Well, you don't need that public access cable to do that. You can live stream on Facebook just, like with your video camera now. So it would be interesting to be able to see if there's some of those resources that can be used as well. But I think education-wise, I think that's one of the reasons why we don't get a lot of volunteers is anybody new coming to town, they're not coming from a situation with I think at the charter review committee, I think I even made the statement that there's not that many open town meeting towns anymore, and there are. I had no idea, because again, I come from a city, so. But anyway, that was just my feeling on that.
I'm going to regret volunteering this, but I did intellectual property lawyer, so if you have copyright questions, I might be.
I'm assuming if they posted it on Vimeo, it was okay.
Well, that might be a dangerous song, but if you want.
I can take that off Facebook. I just basically want people to know that, one, there's such a thing as town meeting, and two, there's a town meeting coming up, and if you want to get a warrant article in, just to use that avenue as well, to let people know to become involved, so.
Is there an interest in a town Facebook? I mean, I know there's legal questions, and I know there's a lot of questions because we can't get into a situation where we're having an open discussion. I mean, there's a whole lot of open meeting laws issues regarding a social media site. But I guess my question is do the committees have an interest in looking into that?
Yeah, as long as you restrict comment. If it's
Okay.
pushing out the information, I think it's safe.
Okay.
Right? As long as if you invite comment, you could
Invite trouble.
I imagine.
But you can just let people know where to go to.
Exactly. Here's where our meeting's going to be.
Right.
So one of the things that's helpful on social media for a lot of people is, and if we're getting a website, which I think might be the word that is maybe possible, is that you can put a calendar out and on Facebook, and if I accidentally click that button, I can now see all the events that are taking place that I never wanted to see, and it goes right to my cell phone. So I think whether it be through social media or whether it be through the website platform, to be able to put all those things out there so that if somebody wants to subscribe to those, events, they can get one click versus having to go and search for it.
Or not even just events, but certain committees. Some people may be interested in their preservation district and want to know when we're having our next meeting, what we talked about last time, when our bylaws change, and any of the other, I don't know the regulations change, but they may not be interested in how much you pay. So if they can subscribe on the particular, but if they can subscribe on the particular committee that they're interested in, they can get notified.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, we talked about increasing communications amongst the group, maybe meeting more than once every 14 months. Might be a good idea. I know the last time we met, a year ago, I was impressed with the fact that we wanted to do this, and then it didn't seem to go anywhere. So I'm glad that we're picking up steam again. I would just hate to see us rock the ball.
And some of that was we now have a new town manager versus the old one. So part of the process was, and that's one of the goals that Heather has, is part of the communication process, so.
Two quick things if I could add. One, the issue of liaisons came up, and we've been very, very fortunate on the Board of Library Trustees. They have a couple of active liaisons from the selectmen, from the FinCom, and it's very, very helpful in terms, I think, of understanding, those boards understanding what goes on within a regular meeting. The other thing as far as social media is I know over the course of the last few years, the library website homepage has gone from like nothing to spectacular most of the time. But as with that site or the town's website, I go to the town's website when I have to pay my real estate bill, but I don't make a habit of going. And even among our own members of the library, they keep on saying, so did you go check the webpage this week? I mean, at least, there may need to be more. We sort of assume that people are doing social media stuff and checking out web pages. And there may be, but they may not be going to look at the town's webpage on a regular enough basis to see what's going on. It's the same with the library. And there's a wealth of information there beyond, I can pay my real estate bill, I can pay my excise tax bill, I can pay my personal property bill if I have it. So, whether there's some way to make that more either attractive or encourage people, I don't know.
Can I comment?
Sure.
We are going to be in the process of completely overhauling the town website. So through the Community Compact program, we receive grant funds to improve communications, and we're going to use the website as one of those platforms. So it will be less cumbersome, more easy to navigate, and more information at your fingertips, I think.
Will the Board of Selectmen also then allow posting of notices to the website versus on the walls or anything else according to the new rules that are allowable?
That we would have to work through the
So part of the issue is that the town voted that the outside bulletin board is the official place. If you post by the town website, if you have an internet outage, you have to cancel meetings, as opposed to if it's still out there, you can keep doing it. So, but we have a town bylaw that requires people to post their agendas and their minutes with the town clerk, who then puts it on the website. So we have to figure out how do we enforce that so we have the dual way of doing it. And we may need to look at revising the bylaw to require the consistent agenda, the minutes, the requirement of posting, and then include the multiple posting platforms too. And there's ways to do, once you post it here, it automatically goes to the other places too.
One of the things I just want to say about open meeting law, and this is the right audience, you're all on committees, and it's important that you don't see open meeting law as something that restricts you from doing your job. It basically supports what we've been talking about tonight, how to best communicate. And if you're trying to communicate something and what you perceive to be open meeting law getting in your way of doing that, let's talk about that. Let's get our town council involved, because the whole background of open meeting law is to make sure that we're transparent to the town and that we tell them what we're going to talk about. We let them watch it if we possibly can. We let them participate in it, and then we tell them what we talked about. That's really kind of the bottom line. And as long as we're aiming towards that, any of the other stumbling blocks, as Bob just brought up, are not insurmountable. They do require some work, but they're not insurmountable.
In the 1960s, the Board of Selectmen, at that time 3 members, would meet on Sunday mornings in the Selectmen's room downstairs to go over the warrant, and they discussed what they were going to do that week. That was before the open meeting law was enforced. So things have changed to the point where we've even gone to the point where now televising our workshops so that people get to see us make the sausage. I mean, it's the Conservation Commission televises their meetings, one of the two meetings they have, and you have to pay attention to what's on the board to see where they're doing. The planning board does that too. Now, it's a pain in the neck, you have to pay attention, and there are technical things that we can do to improve that for actually putting things on the screen. How does it get out there? Can people get it on the website ahead of time? Things like that. But it's improving the communication, and then you understand what's going on.
I think there's a phrase I don't like called small town politics, and it embodies the idea that in small towns, whoever's involved gets their way, everyone's kind of on board, and that there's no real way for anyone in the community to get involved. And I think that this perception is made worse when elected officials don't campaign. And I think that campaigns are a way to give people information, not just about the Board of Selectmen or the Planning Board, but also all the other boards and committees in towns where most people run unopposed. And it gives them the opportunity to get their name out there, but also the information out there of what does this board actually do and how does it impact people's lives. So I think that one of the things that I'm taking away from this is the necessity of campaigning. Not so much to create a contentious problem, but to spread information.
So, Jim, you mentioned you liked this meeting and you liked, it took 14 months to have another one. I guess my question is, how do we build a framework for the next one? Because now we've identified some things we can do to improve, but what kind of things would you like? Set agendas? Would you just like roundtable discussions? I guess I'm questioning.
One thing I'm just understanding because I'm on 2 committees, so I know about what's going on with those 2 committees, but I don't have time to go through all the other committees. I watch the Board of Selectmen on YouTube while I'm at work. So I don't always catch the nuances of everything that's being discussed, but I try to keep up with what's going on. What I liked hearing today was what each one of the committees is working on in the immediate future, and how what they're doing is impacting the town. I thought that was helpful. Now, whether we meet on a quarterly basis or we send out, a quarterly newsletter amongst the committee members, I don't know how we make that work. But I liked hearing what was going on with parks.
Yeah.
I don't go to the parks. I don't.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of anything other than what I saw on Facebook about cleaning up the park.
Yeah.
Or the library. I go to the library occasionally, but it's nice to know what's going on.
If we were to institute a formal schedule where the boards could come and have a piece on our agenda, 10, 15 minutes to talk about what they're working on, what they've accomplished, what they need from us, what they like the town to know. Maybe they're a board that isn't televised regularly. Would you see that as a burden, or would you see that as a tool?
It's huge, right? So if there's nothing really going on, and you say, hey, Parks, come to this meeting, I mean, my response to you might be, I don't need anything right now, I have no questions, and there's no update. You would skip that meeting.
But one of the things that I think that I just heard, and it's something we tried to institute some time ago and it didn't really get off the ground, is it's not just what the committee needs, but having the community understand and the other boards understand what the commission or committee is doing. And I think that's the piece that is kind of missing, and I think that would help in both volunteers and understanding and communication if we all started to share this information information on a more regular basis. And I'm really glad this was televised, because I think the public now has kind of an understanding of what all of you are working on and what you're doing. And I guess the question is, do we try to implement that on a regular basis, just to find out what's going on and to improve communication? And do that in the Selectmen's Forum, because that's what we talked about doing, was, have 2 committees in a month or something to just give an overview of what's going on.
I personally would, we have something called committee update as part of our regular agenda. And the liaison from the committee kind of tells us, normally at the end of the meeting, when we're all kind of tired, what's going on in their committee, and they try to capture the highlights. I almost would prefer us to have a rotating schedule where you come in and use that slot to tell us what you're working on, what you've accomplished, what you want the town to know about. To me, that's way better, but that's my personal.
Well, it puts it in the language of the committee.
Right.
Whereas when I come, I filter what I think I heard was important, and that may be okay based on what they said, but it may also be I may have missed something.
But I think personally, I think it's 2 different things. I think there's regular updates that are just the regular weekly updates, but versus maybe a quarterly update from a committee that gives a general overview, an overarching view of the goals. I mean, I learned a lot tonight on what each committee is focused on, the overarching goals versus the weekly occurrences. So I think what the liaison does is a little bit different than what we're talking about.
Or maybe even, rolling, each week of the Board of Selectmen, you have a different committee.
Right,
10 minutes,
right.
This is what we work on.
Right.
And then it takes 4 months until they come.
Exactly.
That way, at least from my personal selfish perspective, when I'm watching the Selectmen Meeting on YouTube while I'm working, I can at least get an idea of what's going on with somebody else.
So I worry about time, and I'll be honest, we are for the 3-person committee, that's the many you can have. But I was talking to a school committee member today, who's just needing that period between everything they have. I think it's a great idea to have conversations like this, but I also have to, in the back of my head, I'm sitting there saying, how do we get people to want to take an interest, but they are tuning into something other than one meeting every 4 months or however many times we come in for an update, when, most of us are posting minutes and agendas, absolutely agendas, but minutes are done in a timely fashion. I respond to every single email that I get that doesn't require board conversation, because sometimes it's just very general. I just feel like sometimes we put the information out there and nobody's coming to look for it. And now we're looking to put it out there another way, and I just am not convinced people are going to be looking for it. And I'm more interested to see how we get people involved. And I think when we get people to come to places like town meeting, and they see how it runs, then it says to them, hey, let's get involved. Or they get involved when there's a problem, and somebody says the only way to fix it is to do X, Y, and Z, then they get involved. I just don't know if we're jumping through the right groups in the right direction to pull people in one state, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I mean, I look at our town meeting the past 3, 4, 5 years. The turnout is horrific. We are making decisions for the town last year, and I believe and possibly the year before, we lost quorum. Quorum is 50 people. So how do we get people to be interested? And I don't know if the interest is going to come from getting them to come to town meeting to see what town meeting's about, so they want to get involved and see what the action is. I don't know.
How do we do that? Any suggestions?
I've lived in this town for a while, and I'm going to admit, you can't think of many times in which I've received or even known of anyone running for office. Whereas, this gentleman Tram's running for office the next, for, I'm not sure if it's senator, and there's signs for him everywhere, and so in like a month. I think that on our level, certainly, I plan on running for the planning board next year, unopposed or not. I plan on going to people's doors and shaking their hands and getting to know people. I think that the process of reaching out to your neighbors and campaigning, it brings them into the loop. It talks to them, it says, I care about your views, and I think that is critical to engagement.
Pete?
I think though, Michael, the problem in this town is volunteers, and to get 2 people to apply for an office has become very problematic. I think this idea of coming before the boards, and rather than having the chairman say, we have the following openings, and read a list, if the committees came, explained what they did, and put the cry out personally to join, people recognize some of the
That's a great idea.
And I think it's a recruitment tool, just deciding a list or posting it somewhere, because that makes it personal. And if you recognize somebody in the group, you can call them, make more personal contact. And as far as going door to door, that's going to shy people away from the thing.
I like that idea of the vacancies.
Comment on volunteers and associate members. I just think back when I first got on here, they basically said, well, come when you want, sit in the audience, listen, observe, okay? Or you got a call and said, oh, somebody's out, can you come in? Well, the last few years, we've changed that for associates. They sit out there with us, they sit as part of the board, they ask questions, they're involved, they're learning, and it gives them, if you just call them once in a while, you're really not into it. Well, our associate members pretty much turn up for most of the hearings unless the bar happens. And so, even if somebody is out, and that, if it's continued, you can continue because an associate was there and they heard the first part. But it's a good way to, when you do get people, you're trying to get them engaged, get them involved. They can't make a motion, they can't vote, but they can ask questions, they can sit there, they can be part of the board. And I think it's a good way to get volunteers. Once you get them, you got to keep them involved.
I don't know if it was Jim that mentioned a newsletter or somebody, but I keep thinking of Jane's newsletter and how having some medium that's different than the interaction going back and forth between boards and committees, because it needs to somehow leave town hall. And I think of something like that 2 times a year being in the ledger as a leaflet or something. The same kind of summaries of these are the committees and these are what they do. It's been really enjoyable to listen to it all sort of together, but if there was a way that existed as a twice a year newsletter looking just like James, where you could have them at the Eagle House, you could have them at the Boys and Girls Club, maybe inside the schools, and somebody's just kind of flipping through, just to be aware that these things are even happening outside of the fact that a lot of this communication means you have to already have come here and getting something that exists outside of here, so that even if it's just being aware, it might not mean that volunteer, even just creating awareness. I think reaching out to each committee to submit twice a year their summary and then compiling that into something that could be distributed.
We do the town report annually, which is basically the overview of the previous year, but maybe doing what you said and just something more, something more about what we've done and try to make it more interesting and try to do it more often.
The ledger goes town-wide.
Mailing, yep.
One at the beginning of the year, but I'm sure the other ones.
Have every committee submit an article.
Submit something for that.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you think about learning styles, one of the reasons why I became a clerk of many different committees is because I learned by the mechanical nature of writing. Then I don't go back to it, but I remember how it was written. Other people listen. So the written newsletter, the meeting. If you think about people in town who have kids, do they have time to come and volunteer? People who are retired, who are just retired and all of a sudden have all this free time and now they're doing a lot of things, do they have time to volunteer? Everybody's at different stages, so we need to create all these different platforms, mechanisms to get people where they are at, and there's not going to be one solution. So I think all of the ideas that came up, we need to find a way to implement them so we get you where you are. Rob Bowen sent me an email saying, because I piggybacked on Elaine's email to all of you, and I forwarded it regarding the charter. Well, Rob Bowen said, I'm not sure why I'm on your list. Well, he was on the bylaw review committee. He said, I'm not on any committee. So my immediate reaction was, so you have time to be on a committee? Well, he's a past committee member, he's a past selectman. You don't want to burn that person out, you don't want to burn anybody out, but you want to find out, well, we got him involved in the bylaw review committee because it was a short, targeted time to get them involved. The associate membership, I think the Conservation Commission has associate members. That might be something to, how do we train people to do this? The people that are afraid of campaigning, you don't get them to run for an elected office, you get them to be an appointed office. That's not too complicated. They don't have to take minutes. They don't have to worry about the different things. What do we get them in, and we find out what they're interested in? So we may need to revise the talent bank to see, are we getting, what are you interested in, instead of, here are the committees you may want to do.
Well, and I guess that goes back to the form that came out of that 14-month ago meeting about how do we get the information out, and everybody said we need to put together a committee worksheet.
Yep.
And so is this what you guys had in mind? Is it something different? And we talked about standardizing, and I like the idea of a standard agenda, a standard minute format. But do we have every committee in town, when you click on their link, it tells you about their committee? Do we have something like that? So if somebody's interested, we can point them there. Right.
Go ahead.
Don't fight.
Just anybody.
I have to be more concrete. Maybe, in the descriptions of each town board or whatever, say, do you live near a wetland and want to cut down a tree? Or, make it very specific, not examples of that, so that somebody who has no idea what, planning board committee, as an example, does, that they can understand it better.
So simple explanations of what each committee does.
With examples.
Like a mission statement, sort of?
Well, more simple, I think.
Are you concerned about what your taxes are?
Peter,
I'm
sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure what the answer is, but the comment's been very interesting, all very valuable. But in general, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm always rather depressed by the apathy come election time. And I say it to my wife every time. I mean, by the time my current term on the Board of Assessors expires, I will have been festering in the same seat for 10 years, unchallenged, and in the 3-year terms. And I say to her, and I mean it, I would rather lose in a robust democracy than see the apathy we see every week. I would feel better about that. No seat should be safe on any board. It should be refreshed, turned over, or defended. Successfully defended and made to answer. What have you done? So I think it's more healthy. And, I don't know if I would go out and campaign unopposed, but I certainly would invite opposition. And it is about information. People don't know what these boards do. They don't even know they exist. Like, look at the assessors. We've had vacancies sometimes. Like it's been a crisis. Somebody's thinking about coming off the board next year. What are we going to do? We're never going to find somebody to sit on this board. And so we just need to, I don't know how you generate that. There is a lot of cynicism. There's a lot of, the whole local politics thing, but it's more than that. I think it's just a lot of cynicism in general, but I don't know what the answer is. It's a comment. Hopefully we can find a solution to it.
Thank you. Pete.
I think the Board of Selectmen is going to have to realize that the town meetings form of government is becoming more and more obsolete. The zeitgeist today is that people who need instant information, quickly achieve on pilots or whatever, and go and sit on a nice warm Saturday and spend all day listening to people talk. It doesn't happen anymore. It was a form that worked great in the old days when farmers could all get together and talk, but more and more people just aren't going to spend that kind of time. We live in an age of instant information, instant disposal, and it's very difficult to get people to volunteer time, great lengths of time away from it.
Actually, I have to say that
more and more of the towns that I talk to, getting the quorum for a town meeting is a problem. The last time we voted on the school, 30% of the voters voted. If something's going to impact their taxes for 30 years.
But I'm not sure this form of government, though. I think that maybe people who are older in the community and have been here a long time might be tired of town. I have to say, it was invigorating for me, coming in new.
But you do.
process and don't understand.
But it's gonna sit.
Yeah, but I think 95%, what they say, I think 95% of towns our size in Massachusetts still have open town meeting.
Well, they have, but they're vendors all split.
We're gonna make it fun.
I'm going to take Karen and then I'm going to take Karen and then Eric, but I do have to kind of start wrapping this up.
So, every week, the school, at least one of the schools has an article in the ledger. And I have to wonder if Selectmen or Heather went to the ledger and said, we'd like to put in a column every week. Now, I'm not the best writer, so I don't want to write my own column, but maybe there's somebody that we already employ in town that has some writing skill that would be willing to spend a few minutes with
A board.
chair or board or somebody to put together, a brief something. This is what the Parks is up to. This is what Green Communities is up to. This is what, I think there'd be a lot of surprise if people start. And it's one of those things where I think if you keep putting it in there, people will gradually start reading it.
And it'll be a place they go to.
Eric?
Well, if we write it.
Yeah.
Eric?
So a couple quick points. Paula, I like the worksheet, the sample kind of draft worksheet you sent out, I think that'd be helpful. I like some of the ideas of whether it's Facebook or newsletter or whatever, the challenge to that, from my own experience is, who's gonna do all that? And, I find that if you have multiple people contributing little bits, let's say they can all edit the newsletter or at least send it to one person to put it into the final format, then it can get done. But maybe it's a lot harder if it's just one person that has to put this article together, put this column together. It's less likely to get done that way. The other thing I would say is the town meeting. I can't tell you how many times I've put on my calendar, town meeting is on this Saturday, and then I'm not able to go because family commitments, children commitments, or whatever. It's always scared me that I don't know how long the meeting's gonna last, right? It seems like it's one of those meetings that has no end until it's actually ended, right? So I think if people knew, and again, I don't know how this would work, if it can work, but if people knew there's a definite 3-hour window for town meeting, and if we're not finished with business, then there's gonna have to be a new schedule. But if it's this open-ended commitment for a full day Saturday, I think a lot of people are scared off by that. The timing of it, I think for families with kids, Saturday during the day is difficult. It's easier for me to get out at night when my kids are in bed, but that might be harder for other people that are in bed now. Right? I don't know if there's a solution to the time, but I would say I'd agree with Pete that just the format itself of having a town meeting on Saturdays and expecting a big attendance, that might be a thing of the past. But so I don't know what the answer is, but one possible modification to that might be having a definite window of time for the meeting, that at least people could plan around that.
I want to thank you all, I really do, and I feel a lack of closure, but I do want to share with you that I do know that there's a lot of what we talked about in the works in various places. The Charter Review Committee is talking about things like the form of government, town meeting, open town meeting, representative town meeting. They're talking about what day of the week makes the most sense. And there's a plan as part of that to get a lot of public input, so there'll be opportunities. The town manager has some very aggressive goals around communication and community involvement. The Board of Selectmen, as I started, have goals that kind of wrap around a lot of the things we talked to tonight. I really appreciate you all being part of this and being here. I think I hear enough energy to do it again. I think we'll do it a little more specific, maybe zero in on a particular subset of what we talked about tonight and work it to the point where we get a deliverable. But I really do want to say that, we did in fact spend 2 hours on this tonight. And that's pretty good to get people as smart as you and as dedicated as you to come together and spend 2 hours on it, and I want to thank you for that.
And who knows who out in TV land or YouTube land, as a result of watching this, may then be more involved because they heard what you said.
Well, I guess I do feel a lack of closure, and I guess I'd like to find out where we go from here. We talked about the worksheet. Do we start implementing something like that and asking committees to fill it out, and then those that fill it out come back and we put that on the website? I think that might be a starting point. I think investigating some of the other things that were brought up tonight, like social media, like a newsletter, we can investigate those in the time between now and our next meeting and come back and kind of report on, we investigated this is feasible, this isn't, and this is what we came up with, is this what you were thinking? So I assume that we'll be doing a lot of work in between this meeting and the next to try to come back and say, okay, this is what we came up with. Is this what you were thinking? But I guess I'd like to kind of back to the worksheet, because it is 14 months old. Is this something that you guys think we should fill out and make available to people?
Yeah, we just need to know who to send it to.
Okay, so I think that's one deliverable we can come out of that. Yeah, I think if we could get those back to the selectman's office, I would think that's the place that they should go, is back to the selectman's office, back to Elaine or Heather, and at least we can start that. So, and then if you have people that are interested, they can go to the website and find that information.
And there's no reason to wait till the next meeting. I think if you have it, send it in. We'll send another mailing out for those that weren't here tonight. That'll give us a place to start to begin to compile that. We'll share what we got with you, and you know, Jim.
No, I was just thinking for if you don't have it here, that perhaps we make it like a Google Doc or something, and somebody can put it in a spreadsheet format. I think we talked about that. I don't know what that was. So that we have all the information.
The problem with that is if somebody's looking for a specific committee this is a Word document, a fillable Word document that we can export to a spreadsheet. But my concern was, and I guess this is a question, is if I'm interested in the Conservation Commission, for example, I don't want to pull up an entire spreadsheet of every committee. I want to and when you get into text, like examples like Jane talked about, or just free text, this spreadsheet could get enormous. And trying to zero in on what you want, I think, is going to be really difficult for a volunteer. They're going to pull. I know for my husband, if it has more than 4 lines, he's not going to read it. So, so I just.
When's your anniversary?
Huh? It's a Word document. It's a fillable Word document. And if it didn't go out as a fillable Word document, we can send it as one, because Elaine has it in that format. So it's a fillable Word document that we'll send out.
It originally went out as a PDF.
Yeah, the second mailing went out as a fillable. So if
and then we'll figure out.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll figure out what other formats we want to do.
Exactly.
The matrix.
Just to fill it out and then export it in whatever format you want, but if it's fillable.
It's a fillable.
Document,
Yeah.
I don't think that's what made it out.
All right, so we'll send that again. Yeah.
I think with all the openings and things, I think when people show interest, that if they show interest for, say, the planning board, they should have somebody get back to them as soon as so someone turns in a talent bank for planning board to Elaine, she should contact the planning board, and we should proactively inform them of what the time commitments are and things of that nature.
I believe that is the process now, and I don't know if that's been occurring.
Through the chair or whoever, because I know a lot of them don't.
Now, a lot of people fill out, I want to be involved, and they check 5 boxes.
Right.
And they get sent as best we can. But if someone expresses an interest in a particular board, I believe the first step is to send that to the chair of that board.
And that's part of our policy about the talent bank process, is that we communicate with the board. They're supposed to get back to us. We have a responsibility. Don't just leave it with the board, because in the past, some boards, because they didn't have a quorum, didn't act on it, and then it fell apart. So it's still our duty to keep following through on it.
And you know, one of the things I just want to say is we have started some of these things. We did do PSAs through PAC, where several chairs got on camera and told what their committee did. It ran on a schedule, and now it's still available on YouTube. Any committee is more than invited to do that, or update it, or whatever. We have the booth at any fair I can possibly think of, and I usually man it by myself. So any chair that has a vacancy, any board that has a vacancy, you're welcome to join me, and we do our best work when we can get somebody in the flesh and talk to them about what we do. These things exist. They can be improved, obviously.
One thing that the fair, I mean, it'd be great if some of the committees, and I know on a different committee that I'm on, we have an annual meeting, and all the various subcommittees put together kind of poster boards with pictures of what they've done and just little write-ups of what they've done. I mean, something like at the Stillman Fair, if the various committees, like the senior center, had a picture of the bocce court and the shuffleboard, and I know that Sue was there, but maybe we need to get more visual. I mean, as Bob said, people all do things differently, but I don't know. For me, I'm a visual person. So if I see something that I find interesting, I'm going to gravitate towards it. So maybe we need to get more of that kind of stuff out there, and we can do that in a variety of ways, whether it be through fair forums, whether it be through newsletters and articles in the paper. But start thinking about that from your committee perspective, is things that you're doing that the public might be interested in, and let's try to get more of that out there.
Thank you. I'm going to close this part of the meeting. And thank you again for being a part of it. Encourage you to stay part of it. Stay with us. We're working this. I like the effort. I think we can get better than we do it today.
And take a refreshment before you go.
Okay, anybody else that convened the meeting want to adjourn it?
You're all welcome to stay, but you don't have to.
And the refreshments are really good, so grab one on your way out. Somebody grab a cookie or a scone.
Thank you, Elaine. These are from Dragonfly.
They are delicious. They're from Dragonfly Cafe.
I had them the other day, they're great.
I'm going to push through this because we have... Can I ask you to do it quiet? If you're leaving, can I ask you to leave quietly so we can wrap up our meeting? Do we have any minutes?
I'm gonna grab some.
See any? No minutes? Have warrants? Accounts payable? One in the amount of $518,957.94. Okay, any action file issues? Any action file issues? Paul, you have any action file issues? Okay. Yeah, we have to talk a little bit about our October schedule. All right. You want to kind of help us with that?
Sure. I sent around an email to see who is available for October 23rd, since everyone was going to attend the 24th meeting. Roar. One, but Selectman Petersall could attend.
Could I ask you to hold it down, please? Thank you.
So if we can hold a meeting on Monday, October 23rd.
All right.
I just had something come up, and I may be gone the weekend of the 21st. So, but you would still have a quorum, so, right?
You'll be back on the Monday?
I don't know.
Yeah, you still have a quorum of 3.
What were the items on that
For that.
one? See, we're juggling the items to make sure that, we'd obviously like all of us at all the meetings, but we're trying to make sure that the key contributors, we're taking the items from the 17th and 24th and trying to figure out who's going to be here and who isn't. All right.
We're on the 20th.
I will make sure I'm back for the meeting.
Yeah? You sure?
I'll just make sure I'm back for the meeting.
Because otherwise we divided up the action items to make sure that we put them on the right nights. So we'll meet on Monday, the 23rd at 7. We'll meet on Tuesday, the 17th at 7.
Correct.
And I know that Damon can't make the 17th and Bob can't make the 23rd. The rest of us are here for all of it. And we'll get the agendas out as soon as possible.
Yes.
Okay?
The one other thing would be to, I spoke with the superintendent about scheduling a workshop with the school committee regarding their long-term plan for Turkey Hill. And we'll be looking at the November 7th or the 14th, one of those dates. And it would coincide with a discussion on the town buildings.
Okay, now, were we going to do a workshop?
On the 21st,
Okay,
November 21st.
we moved that to the 21st because that's a follow-up to the...
Economic development.
Okay, fine. So everybody okay with that then?
Yep.
School on 7th or 14th, yep.
All right. I'm about to ask, why is this 2 and 3 and there's no 1? Is that the way it's supposed to be?
Those are the sections of the exemption.
Oh, okay, fair enough. So I would request a motion to enter executive session, the first executive session under MGL, Chapter 30, Section 21, Reason Number 2, to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the government's bargaining position and the chair declares so. And this is regard to the town manager's contract and performance review.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. McQuaid?
Aye.
Mrs. Luck?
Aye.
Mrs. Bertram?
Aye.
Mr. Evasol?
Aye.
And I for myself. So Heather is going to excuse herself for that part.
And we are not going to return, or do we come back into public session and then go into the next executive session?
You can adjourn, you just say that you're going to adjourn an executive session after you exit executive.
Do we need to read the second executive session in public?
Yes, we should read both of them. Yeah.
Okay. So the second executive session is under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Reason Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining.
Heather, I have a question before you leave.
If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the government's bargaining position and the chair declares so. And this is with regard to the professional firefighters, DFFM Local 4358A, and AFSCME Council 93 Municipal Employees Union contract negotiations.
So moved not to return after that executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Before we vote, I have a question.
Okay.
Is the public safety coordinator a member of the AFSCME Council 93?
Yes.
Okay, so I will be recused, I just want to make it on the record, I will be recusing myself from that executive session.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to enter executive session, not to return. All those in favor, Mr. McQuaid?
Aye.
Mrs. Luck?
Aye.
Mrs. Bertram?
Aye.
Mr. Evasol?
Aye.
And I for myself.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'll come get you when we finish the first part.